Thank you so much again for being here. I'm so excited to talk about creativity and how our elusive creative genius follows us throughout our lives and in our work as creatives. But as we know, we are all creative by nature, as we have many things in our daily lives that require creativity so that we can balance out our left-brained analytical self and our right-brained creative self to be able to think outside the box. Now, I do have a little presentation, so I'm going to share my screen with you guys. So we're going to talk about the improvisation in life and art. First, I want to tell you a little bit about me. You already heard I'm an actor in theater, film, television. I've worked in countries like Mexico, the US, the UK, and Germany for different and various projects. That's a big, big love of mine because I love to travel, and I think travel inspires new ways of being and teaches us about ourselves. I've been a singer, I've been a radio host for 88.9 FM in Boston for Broadway and film music, which was so cool because I got to interview Broadway tours. Any Broadway tour that came into Boston and into town, I got to talk to them and interview them and kind of bounce off ideas and also stay in touch with them, which was wonderful. Once I graduated college, I left and came to LA. So then I started doing a little bit more producing and film in film and TV because I realized that as an actor, I knew a lot of people, and I also just love to meet people in general. People are a big inspiration to me, obviously, as an actor. I like to embody different kinds of ways of being, so different people interest me, right? So I found that a big power I had as a human being was to be able to introduce people that should meet in order to impulse or impulsar, in order to promote um, projects that are creative in nature and also hopefully be able to be a part of them. But I also found I loved producing, and that led me into more of the business world type of thing, type of lifestyle. I've been a first AD and a director's assistant on set because I wanted to see the movement. It's like a dance when you're on set. You have, everyone's doing their jobs, but it's all a collaborative task to bring one art form together, right? So what we end up seeing are the actors on screen and the beautiful costumes and the beautiful scenery. But at the end of the day, behind the scenes, there's a huge team of people that need to be able to work together and collaborate together in order to organize and make it happen. So the first AD does that, or they organize, right? Most of you will know this, but I have a few of my students here that I see. Hey guys, thank you for joining. I was also a high school teacher for a while, so it's awesome to be able to stay in touch. So some of my students, I just want to make sure I cover everything for everybody. As I just said, I was a high school teacher at 23. I found that as an actor, I still needed to pay the bills. So I was hired at a private high school in order to build a theater conservatory, an actor studio for their theater conservatory. And I got the pleasure to direct a few wonderful plays with a wonderful budget. And from there, I went to direct more plays in North Hollywood to raise awareness for different subjects, which is a passion of mine. In North Hollywood, I directed a play called Dolores, which raised awareness on domestic violence, and we raised money for the Good Shepherd Shelter, which was super wonderful experience of how in life you can use what you most love and your passion, right? And in order to move certain ideas or acts forward, and I think that's the power of art and reflecting life. Right. All right. And now I've entered the business world. I've just gotten back to LA yesterday from Mexico, as I'm now working in a few other ventures having to do with entertainment, technology, COVID, agriculture, and medicine, as a founder of my own company, Diamond Pacific Ventures. And that's a whole other thing, but I'm going to describe why all of that is relevant, which is it's led me essentially the improvisation of everyday life and being a creator has led me to all these different ventures because I've been able to maintain a focus to where I wanted to go, which was to be an on-screen actor, but also be actively listening and aware of the paths around me that might allow me to get there in a unique way. And listening to those doors that get opened for you takes you on a, of course, on a learning journey where you're learning as you're doing, which is a big part of improvisation as well. So we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Come on. Uh-oh. No, my computer is frozen. Am I frozen? No.
Uh, yeah, I'm gonna stop doing participant sharing. So try again, Andrea. Try to share
Hmm.
the screen again.
Is it not sharing the screen?
Yeah, so try to share it again. So we'll just repeat that whole thing.
Wait, is it not sharing the screen right now?
No, no.
Oh, oh, that's weird. I only see my presentation in front of me. That's not good. Can you only see me?
Yeah, only you for the moment.
Only me. Okay. Oh, well, there we go. Now it's working. Oh, no, it's not. Ah, I don't know what to do. Let's see if I click exit. Oh, okay, I can see my mouse now. And I can see you guys. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. This is
Okay.
tech. Try sharing screen again. All right. The beauty of improvisation. Here we go. All right, keynote presentation, share.
There we
Let's
go. We can hear
this
perfectly. Yeah.
in. Play on this Mac. There we go.
Yeah,
All right.
perfect. Go for it.
Go.
Take it away.
Um, all right, but it's not going to the next slide, so that's not good. Maybe I'll just look at it and I'm sorry. All right, exit. Can you still see it?
Yeah, yeah. So just go to the next slide and then maybe hit
Yeah.
play, and that'll probably make it work. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it. If you guys don't mind, don't
Yeah.
look ahead, okay? Don't cheat. Stay here in the main one, and I'll keep it here just in case because I can't see my mouse in the other one, and that freaks me out. All right. So I thought we'd start with the definition of creativity, right? The dictionary definition, which is the use of imagination or original ideas, especially in the production of an artistic work. Now, the use of imagination or original ideas. It's easy to feel sometimes that we aren't particularly original because there are recipes that we're following, for example, in cooking. But every time we're cooking or we're creating in daily life, we are using our own unique spark of creation, right? You're cooking, anytime you're doing your makeup, anytime you're deciding what to wear outside in the street based on how you feel, which is how I tend to dress. How do I feel today? And of course, sending that really witty message back to your friend who was just really sassy with you. And all of those acts are acts of we're instantaneous reaction, right? Where we are responding to something that caused us some kind of inspiration of some sort, and we don't notice it because we do it naturally. That's the state of living, right? What differentiates us as human beings from beasts and animals is the ability to have an impulse or an instinct and not necessarily act upon it, which means that we have that conscience to act in the way that we feel we should, in the way that we most know ourselves to be, right? So we can react to things based upon, and we'll talk about this in a little bit later, nurture or nature, right? Based on, our genetic code, what we're most likely to do in a situation where we're faced with survival, for example, or nurture, what we were taught in terms of our value systems, our integrity, what we were made to discover about ourselves through the journey of our lives, which is sometimes chaotic and unexpected. Most times it's unexpected. So I also wanted to give the definition that our wonderful conference creators and founders gave, which is to be creative is to be a change maker, right? Creativity is not always about being understood. Sometimes it's a way of demanding a response from another that's watching your work, asking more questions than get answered, right? I think in life we all have the experience where the more we learn about a specific thing, the less we feel we know about that because the more we know, we don't know, if that made any sense. So, of course, we're always asking more questions when we create, when we make art. Why? Because that's where we grow. Every constant moment in our lives that we are projected forward, we are given a new circumstance where we have to face it. And in facing it and taking actions, we discover something about ourselves, which then changes us from within. And therefore, we are moving on to the next thing, which we then would respond to that same impetus differently, right? Now, they also said finding that elusive moment where something original is brought into the world. So now I want to talk about originality, right? There are many reasons why we are original, but basically, here's me as a little kid. Why are we unique, right? What makes you original? Now, I believe what makes us original is no one has our unique history, right? Our natural inclinations come from either genetic habits or our nurture growing up, as I was just mentioning. But we all have a unique map of learning, and so whatever neural pathways were formed in when we were learning these things throughout our lives, whatever situations we were put in are completely unique to our being. Therefore, if we are reacting to something that is given to us, it's going to be a different reaction from somebody else. That might be self explanatory or obvious in all of our experiences. However, it's something to really keep in mind when we are in the process of creating, because in the process of creating, sometimes fears and doubts tend to creep into our minds that saying, well, this has been said before, or well, I don't want to copy this thing that they did. But sometimes when you take that inspiration, say you are taking a story that's already been written, and you just think of, it was written, say, in the 1950s, and now you think, wow, this lesson would really go well with what's happening today in the world, right? So I'm going to modernize it. The story's already there, but now with my creative and unique vision, I'm going to make it something new. And all art essentially then builds upon each other, because we learn techniques and we learn concepts from things in our search history, and in our investigation of how to better ourselves at our craft or at whatever it is that we do. However, we then provide value to the world by bringing some of our own spark to it, right? And knowing that whatever it is that comes to your mind and trusting that it will be original because it's coming from you is an essential part of freeing yourself as a creative, and an essential part of being free to improvise, right? We'll talk a little bit more about the definition of improvisation next. So for me specifically, I grew up, I'll tell you a little bit about my childhood to give an example of this, right? I was born and raised in Monterrey, Mexico, and I was naturally very inclined towards being very social, which I'm sure terrified my parents, because I just loved talking to everybody and saying hi to, whomever. And I was very comfortable. I liked people a lot. I always loved music. I always loved movies. I was mesmerized by them. I had a very strange, for a kid of 3 years old, amount of focus when it came to artistic things such as music or films, right? And before I could even talk, actually, my parents used to tell me that when I was a kid, if I wanted music, I would just go like this, because I couldn't talk, but I would do this as a baby to listen to music, right? There was something there that already drew me to this sort of creative path. And I was very lucky to have very supportive parents to be able to explore all of these different fields, from visual arts to theater to being social in social gatherings at school. And that fits into my originality in a way, because today, now, as a producer, as a businesswoman, as a teacher, my nature to want to gravitate towards people and find out their story, and share in that collaboration and improvisation of conversation, and sharing of ideas, that nature has led me to be where I am in my creative path. But you can also not have that kind of nature and learn it from your nurture, right? And learn that, I'm really interested in people, but actually I'd rather not talk to them. I'd rather observe them and write about them, right? And all of it is beautiful and wonderful. So that's a little bit about my nature. Now, as an adult, I realized something that was very difficult for me at the time, which was moving to the U.S. at around 10 years old, 9 or 10 years old. I had to learn a whole new language. I had to learn a whole new culture and way of expressing myself, because in culture, you define communication through its own humor. You have a unique way of having interactions with people based on not just the language, which is different, but you have different contexts for things, right, which are impulsed or indicated by culture. So that was a really big shift for me at an age where, especially for someone who's very social, to not have to have that bit of a language barrier, and also have to make new friends in new places. But what it allowed me to do later on today in my life is it allowed me the skill of adapting, right? And accepting new settings for what they are in the present moment, and therefore be able to build upon that and appreciate it for what it is, right? I learned to enjoy my own company because there were some lonely times in there where I had to really create the foundation of my own identity, from just having different cultures and having different languages and having to fit in new places. We didn't just move from Mexico to the US, we ended up moving quite a bit, cities and houses. And so I was adapting a lot, and this was due to my dad's work, and it was a wonderful experience looking back, because I realized that now I just love jet setting. I mean, obviously not during pandemic times, but I used to love to travel a lot, and it complements my natural inclination to be a student of life, which is, I think, just essential for all of us to hold dear and hold on to that curiosity that we naturally have as little kids. As adults, that leads us to creative freedom as well, right? That curiosity, to explore new topics and without fear of not knowing them already, which is an odd thing. When we go into situations, we want to know a lot about something, but sometimes the best way is to just keep asking more questions. I learned to recognize my own voice as an artist, right? Knowing myself, enjoying my own company, as I'm going to all these different ventures in my life, with the zeroed focus of just being an explorer of creativity and taking action towards that. Recognizing your own voice, it can be difficult, because sometimes we are affected by what other people think, what other people say in our lives. What our inner circle most holds dear ends up affecting what we hold dear in the end, right? So it's important to surround ourselves with good people. But recognizing my own voice came from those moments of silence, and came from moments where I trusted the flow of my creativity, whether I was writing a story, or whether I was reading a script and looking beyond the page into the subtext, into the world outside of what the writer has put on the page, in order to embody it and make it my own. It allowed me moving around. We're still talking about nurture, right? Moving around allowed me to value true connections with people, and know which people, as we were talking about, the having your inside circle of people affecting you, which people are the ones that I want to be most like, that recognize that light in me. Which people do I recognize the light in, that are going to effectively be part of my team going forward in this life, right? These were all tools that strengthened my creative path in the end, though they may have been difficult at the time, or they led to a lot of moments of uncertainty. I just realized I have my heater on, and if I turn it off, there might be better sound. Hold on. All right, there we go. I'm not sure if that made a difference, but I suddenly realized, I live in an ice box. So, all right. So what does all of this I just talked about have to do with improvisation, right? Improvisation is taking action as a response to something outside of ourselves, right? To someone speaking to us in daily life. Hey, you, and you don't know if it's going to be, a fight or a friend. What we do next is our moment of improvisation, right? Improvisation can be in a structured format, such as an improv troupe on stage, right? So it is. Can you still? Everybody still sees everything okay, right? This change, okay.
Yes.
Um, it is also, it can also be structured, right? So it can be a improv troupe performing on stage under a given set of circumstances, and then the people, situation, and possibility align for them to take action and move forward with whatever they think is best. So we take action in everyday habits and in survival instinct, as I mentioned, which comes from our mixture of nurture and nature. Um, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that context that I was talking about, the improvisation on stage, and purposeful improvisation in art. I'm going to speak from a lens of a performer, but this applies, of course, to all art forms, art shows that take place live, right? So the dictionary definition of improvisation is to compose, recite, play, or sing extemporaneously, to make, invent, or arrange, to make or fabricate out of what is conveniently on hand. So, on hand can be the inspiration that suddenly comes through us because we just saw a little kid swinging on a swing, and it reminded us of when our mom used to push us on that swing and sing this specific lullaby that then led to us discovering that we wanted to be songwriters, right? And then you start writing that story. I mean, anything in our lives kind of creates this improvisation of creating. Therefore, to create is to improvise because our minds are constantly forming those connections and reacting. When you take action, that's when the improvisation happens, right? After the creativity, the inspiration is there, it's filling you, and you just take action. Now, sometimes in life, unfortunately, we're not feeling very inspired. We're not feeling like getting up, or we go to do the task that we're set out to do that day, and it's just we're just not feeling it the same way we were feeling it when we wrote down to do that thing the night before, right? The importance, however, the importance in our habits, which build upon our self identity and improvisation and daily routine, is to show up for it. Because when we show up for it, even if the inspiration isn't there, but we're doing the work, something eventually ends up in the connections in our mind and with our body and with our surroundings. Something ends up happening from that moment of showing up. So I just wanted to put that out there because I don't want it to sound like you constantly have to be in a place of inspiration in order to create. Quite the opposite. I think creation needs to be a habit in our day-to-day lives. Even if you're, from a banker to someone that's professionally creating, you that balance of left and right brain is so essential and so freeing to any sort of structure that we set out to in our lives, because in creating we realize we don't have to have a specific way of how we want to do things. We just have to have the where we want to go, and then the how. And in creating, we end up listening to our surroundings. We end up looking for that inspiration, and we maintain that childhood curiosity and naivety, which allows that creative response and that identity within ourselves to be very healing, to be a very healing process. And so, in the rigidity of everyday life and habitual life, I think creation should also be a part of that routine in some way to remind us that we need to get outside of our definition of how to do things and instead just focus on the where we want to go. Um, so let's. I want to frame an improvisation. I want to frame improvisation in the performance aspect, right? So we have an improv troupe that is working together, and they're given a scenario by the audience, and they use that as a foundation for a story that they then want to portray or that they then are going to play with, right? And why is this fun, right? I want to talk about what improvisation in that context is, right? They're working together, they're collaborating to craft a story, and they do have guidelines, they have rules, and they, no matter how wild or silly those rules might be, you are a nurse in a, in Jurassic Park healing the dinosaurs, right? Go. So it doesn't matter the context, but you still have certain rules in order to be able to collaborate and work together, right? But the rules are so that there is actually freedom in improvisation. A lot of people think improvisation means having no rules and just kind of doing things sporadically. However, then your energy is all distributed and you're not actually creating, you're kind of just all over the place, right? When you improvise something intentionally, that's, I think, where art really comes in, because then we have, through structure, we have the freedom of improvisation to know within what world we are playing, and then we're able to be free with our creativity, because if we don't know the world, then we're not able to collaborate, right? So the reason that as an audience member we enjoy improv shows and watching these actors on stage basically collaborate under these structured rules and play off of one another is because we're actually going on a journey with the players, because they don't know what's next, what the other person's going to say, and we don't know what's next. So the hilarity of those moments when one says something witty and is able to respond quickly due to practicing doing this craft many times, right? We're able to all have a moment of surprise, which we then laugh at, and the actors on stage are maintaining their character, hopefully. But it's that moment of truth. It's that moment of messiness that brings us together as an audience and for the creator themselves, right? It's in the messiness, it's in the truth that we identify with one another, that we create something that asks more questions, like we had said earlier, what the definition Abby McGovern had given us, which is to create is to ask more questions, and it is. So that's the framework for improvisation in, say, an improv troupe, purposeful improvisation, right? I'm going to give a little example here with wonderful Ellen in the Ellen Show. This is her and Steve Carell having that moment of improvisation. And you'll see the guidelines under which they work.
Steve got to start with a famous Chicago Second City improv troupe, so I thought we'd play a little improv game with him. But here's what's going to happen. I'm going to play the boss. Steve's going to be an applicant at my company. It sounds simple, but here's the catch. We're not going to tell him what job he's applying for. He has to guess what job it is based on my questions. So he's going to... should I turn him around now? Turn that way.
Turn this way.
Yeah, take a look. But is it going to be on those monitors? No. Close your eyes as well.
Okay.
All right, show the possibilities. Are you applying for A, B, or C?
I will be applying for B.
Okay, great. Take it off. Take it off.
All right.
All right. Wonderful. All right.
All right, am I
Great.
good? Can I open my eyes?
I'm going to sit down, and you can enter from that way, and you'd come and sit down there.
I will come. Hi.
How are you?
Well, how are you? Steve Carell?
Fantastic. Hi, Steve. Nice to meet you. Have a
Nice to meet you.
seat.
Thank you so much.
Probably won't be sitting too much, so it's good to take a load off and sit down. And tell me why you're interested in this job.
Well, I'm a go-getter. I feel that I bring something special to
Good. That's
every job that I do.
Have you done this before?
I've done this 7 times.
You have?
I have.
All right, 7 times.
I did it in Barcelona. I did it in Paris. I did it in Luxembourg. Munich. How many is that? 4?
Yeah. Well, we get the idea. So you have done it. And what's your favorite part about the job?
I like the travel. But not so much that. Because there's so many other things that are so great about this job.
Yeah.
Like, I love the smells. I enjoy fine cuisine.
Well, there's certainly the fine cuisine and the smells are what people come to us for. So that's great. And you don't have a problem with the uniform at all?
No, I insist on the uniform.
So, and I assume do you shave your legs? Do you wax? What do you do?
Well, I do both. The lower part of my legs I shave, and then I wax from the kneecap up the thigh.
Okay, great. Because, the shorts are short.
I enjoy short shorts.
What size are you, by the way?
I am, in day clothes, I'm like a large to extra large, but in the short shorts, I go extra small.
Good. Right.
I actually wear children's clothing.
Oh, good. So you do because they're small.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. And you stretch a lot, I assume. A lot of stretching.
Yes, I do. I like to stretch.
Great. What is would you say, what is your best asset? From your body. What
That's part of my body.
Yes.
My physical self.
Yes.
I have wonderful shaved legs. And my booty has been spoken of highly in various circles. Yes.
Great. So you don't mind that if people would comment or enjoy the.
No. Actually, I would invite comments.
Right. Great. And if you were talking, let's say we're talking about sharks, would you? describe it as a big shark or a small shark? Or...
Well, let's put it this way. My shark gets the job done.
Okay, guys. So that is one wonderful example with Ellen and Steve Carell of what we are discussing. So as you could tell from that video, what Steve is doing in that moment of improvisation, he has no idea what the context is. He has no idea what he's going to say next. But what he is doing is listening actively and getting all the information, and then saying yes, first of all, to what Ellen is giving him, right? In every context that she asks him a question, you've done this, oh, have you done this before? Done it 7 times. And then he gives examples of where, right? And that comes from somewhere in his psyche and his experience. That comes from, but he's being, that comes from him in some way, right? But he's being as specific as possible in order to provide that world and that context. And he's daring to say things that seem to go with that moment, right? We do this in everyday life, but we enjoy it in art as we're seeing it as an audience, because we have the context for what's going on. And we know that along with Steve Carell, we're learning information as we go along. And that is a wonderful collaborative art as well, to be able to share in humor and experience. So now I want to look really quickly, because we're running out of time, but I want to look at how improvisation does not just stick to everyday life and the act of creating before, but also in a structured format, such as a film set, right? So is it still improv? I'm going to speak from the lens of an actor again, but this applies to probably all walks of creativity and life. So an actor's job is not just to take a script and look at the lines and figure out how they want to say them, or bring out certain emotions, right? An actor's job, much like it is a writer's job when they were writing the script, the writer created a whole world in their head, which then only a portion of it was able to be transcribed on a page, because obviously once you put something down on paper, there's a limited way of what we can see, right, from the whole world that they created, the emotions that they were thinking of when they were writing the dialogue between characters. An actor's job is much to do the same. It's to look at what's beyond the page, at the subtext, those moments, those subtle moments of connectivity between characters, the relationship based on the given circumstances of the story which the writer has put together. So the structure, much like we were talking about with the improv troops and what we saw with Ellen, there's a structure to the game that we're playing, right? Because in the end, we are playing a game. We're creating, but there's a structure to it, and that is what provides the freedom, or a sort of map and guideline to work off of, to then be able to soar and improvise and be present in the moment. An actor on set should already know their lines backwards and forwards, and should just go into that set knowing the circumstances under which they're playing, and be present in the moment with the other actor. That means that sometimes you're going to say a line and the other actor says their line in a certain way that wasn't how you had planned, and you're going to be affected by it. If you're in the present moment, you're in a state of being affected by your surroundings, right? We're in the present, we're watching, observing, listening, so we're affected by it. This is what many acting teachers always quote, acting is reacting. And that's what that means. You are playing within the context, but you're playing off of the imaginary world you've already created when you're home learning the script, and you've created an imaginary world and circumstances to which you are reacting off of, that are not just the line that's being given to you, but the context under which it's given to you. And as a feeling, moving human being, things affect us in different ways, right? And so if on the page it says, say a script is given to me, and my boyfriend, I play a character that's waiting at home for her boyfriend to come back, and she knows that he's cheated on her, but he doesn't know she knows, and so he gets there and he greets her, and she's supposed to get really emotional and confront him about it, right? Now, if I, as Andrea, am not usually, if I have to find the stakes under which I have to get to that place of being really emotional, because in the script, she has to end up in a place where she's crying, right? And she's desperate to have him come back and be loyal or whatnot. But say he's being really removed, and I'm working with the obstacles at hand in that moment that are already dictated in the script. However, to get to that emotional place, maybe I can up the stakes as an actor. Maybe my secret in that scene is that I just found out I'm actually pregnant, right? So the fact that I just found out that he cheated on me is even more so of a shock, right? So he's getting home, I'm getting ready to tell him I'm pregnant, and he's telling me, you know what, I think I'm gonna leave you for this other woman, right? There you have your stakes have just gone up through the roof, right? And so emotionally, you've created that whole world that's not necessarily on the page, but it got you to a place where you are intended to go, and it's going to read as that truthful response because you're working with specificity around you, right? And that is why having structure allows for that moment of presence and creative improvisation. You're improvising moment to moment when you're creating. So as an actor, even though you have the lines, even though you have a collaborative structure for everyone to work under, you're still improvising with the present moment, because you have to be able to and dare to respond in the way that most feels authentic to you under those circumstances in that day. And sometimes the inspiration isn't there, and so that's why we practice and have techniques under which, okay, when this happens, and we get to know ourselves, because we know, okay, when this happens, I know that I close myself off, or when I'm tired, I tend to not remember things as well, and then I'm going to be uptight about my lines. So then you know, okay, so I know myself in this way. I'm going to make sure I get a good amount of sleep the night before. Or it could be the opposite. It could be that when you're tired, you're actually just way more inviting of the present moment and less and trying to control it less, and so then that's how you flow. And everybody works differently, but in the end, once we have the structure, we are able to freely improvise as well. And so I want to give an example here to my students back in the day when I was teaching. Well, so this is,
There's 5 minutes left to talk, just so be mindful of it.
so we have time for questions. Yes, sorry. All right, so this is everything I just talked about. Script is the foundation, acting is reacting, not pretending or emoting something that you have planned. We can't emote or pretend anything that we planned and have it be convincing, right? So the best actors are always the ones trying not to cry, for example, in a scene. That's the improv. That's the present moment. The character grows and discovers new things, and when you're in that character, in those circumstances, we are also, as the actors, as a human being, growing and learning about ourselves. Now, this is the exercise I'm talking about. A B A B A B. These lines could be say any which way, but the circumstances are different. So say you just had a fight with your best friend the night before. One person might say, hey, the other one might be, hey, so let's, never mind, I'll see you later. No, I mean, it's okay, right? That's I forgive you. But under those same exact lines, under a different circumstance, might come across absolutely different. Say you just had a romantic encounter with a significant other that you've liked for a long time, and you might be a little awkward and be like, hey, hey, so let's, never mind, I'll see you later. No, I mean, oh, it's okay, right? So all of those, that's how the circumstances dictate how we can have a guideline on a page and still necessarily be reacting to the circumstances themselves. So let me skip ahead a little bit. This is what I have learned as a creative and as a businesswoman. To be free to improvise in life and art, you must have intentionality and purpose. You must know the what and where you're going, but not the how, because knowing the how is impossible. You can't know what obstacles life will throw at you or what doors will be opened to you, and that will lead to your greatest amount of learning. You must be willing to fail many times, for that is a formula for action. Once you do something and you really do it and you fail at it, your body literally goes, oh, I survived that experience. I can now do that again, but I failed, so let me do it. Let me see how I can build upon it and do it differently, right? So we've already survived that failure, so what can happen, right? So we keep taking action, so be willing to fail. And being an ongoing student of life, that curiosity takes you way more places than ego won't. They always tell you, fake it till you make it. There's an element of truth to that, I think, but always with the humility of being curious to learn new things and to grow. So that's it, you guys. I loved being able to talk to you about what I believe improvisation does in our daily lives as well as in our art. And this is some suggested reading specifically for these themes. The War of Art, The Alchemist, and The Artist's Way are incredible books for any creative seeking to have that creative freedom and trust their instincts to be able to improvise with life and art. So that's it, guys.
Thank you for that fantastic talk. And we do have time for questions if anybody wants to. We have a question from Will Tams. Question: as an actor, do you look for moments in everyday life where you can improvise in a creative way?
Do I look for moments in everyday life? I've never been asked that question. I do think I do. I put myself in situations that I think would be interesting or that I've never been in before. For example, when I was given the opportunity at 23 to teach at a high school, I thought I don't know the first thing about being a teacher, let alone at a high school. And I'm kind of close in age, and what would that even be like? But then I just sat down and I did a whole lesson plan for what I would do, how I would structure an actor studio. I got my BFA in musical theater. I studied at Harvard World Religions for 2 years, and I was always about academia and creativity. So I thought, well, why couldn't I do this? And the reason that I did it was, even though I had never thought I would be doing that before, is because it terrified me so much. The act of going in to to a board meeting and presenting a lesson plan, and then going in and becoming a teacher and essentially a sort of a leader to young women, was so scary to me that I realized I had to do it. I knew that from that would come a self-realizing experience that I needed to face in order to be my best creative self. And also teaching, acting and directing and doing, teaching what you most love to do, helps you become better at it too. My students taught me so much, and I believe I'm a better actor from having been a teacher and a coach.